The Nature of Reality by Bandra. Welcome to Conversations That Awaken, a podcast where science, philosophy, psychology, mysticism, and direct experience come together to explore life's deepest questions. What is reality? Who are you beyond your thoughts, beliefs, and stories? Is consciousness merely a product of the brain, or is it the very foundation of existence itself? Join us as we journey beyond assumptions, challenge conventional thinking, and investigate the mysteries that have fascinated humanity for thousands of years. This is more than a conversation. It is an invitation to awaken to a deeper understanding of yourself, the universe, and the extraordinary reality we all share. Welcome to Conversations That Awaken.
So, imagine for a second that you inherit a house.
Yeah, a house.
Yeah, a house that has been in your family for generations. And, you know every single creak in the floorboards. You know exactly how the light hits the kitchen counter in the morning.
Right, all the little details.
Exactly. You know all the weird little quirks of the plumbing. And because it's yours, and because it was given to you by the people you love most, you really care for it.
You maintain it.
Yeah. I mean, you might repaint the walls, or you might buy new furniture. You might even change the wallpaper. But, and this is the key thing, you never, ever go down into the basement with a flashlight and a sledgehammer to inspect the foundation.
Oh, I see where this is going.
Right. You just assume the foundation is solid because, well, the house has always been there.
It's basically the ultimate human default setting. We decorate the structure, but we rarely, if ever, question what it's actually built on.
Exactly. And today, we're taking a sledgehammer to the basement of reality.
I love that.
We are looking at the foundation. I mean, we're talking ranging from ancient philosophical texts and historical accounts of mystical experiences, all the way up to modern physics papers from CERN on unified field theory.
It's the massive scope.
It is. And our mission today is to figure out what reality is actually made of, beneath all that wallpaper. But before we swing that hammer, I think we really have to acknowledge that we are walking into incredibly sensitive terrain here.
We definitely are.
Because for many people, religion is not merely a set of beliefs, it is family, culture, identity, memory, community, hope. It is the language they were given to make sense of life, death, suffering, and just the mystery of existence.
Which is why we need to be incredibly clear about the boundaries of this conversation right from the jump.
Right. So let us be clear about what this conversation is and what it is not. This is not an attack on religion.
Definitely not.
It is not an attempt to mock anyone's faith, insult anyone's tradition, or declare that one group has the truth while everyone else is just wrong. And we are certainly not here to violently tear down one set of beliefs, only to hand you, the listener, a shiny new set of beliefs to blindly swallow.
Right, because if we did that, what would we have actually accomplished?
Nothing.
Exactly, nothing at all.
We would have simply changed the wallpaper inside the exact same psychological prison. It is not about telling you what to believe. It is about asking whether you have ever examined why you believe what you believe.
This actually reminds me a lot of the work of Bandra, who I think serves as such a vital touch point for this kind of inquiry.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, Bandra's framework on what he calls architectural inheritance really grounds this whole conversation. He basically argues that we inherit the psychological and philosophical structures of our worldview in the exact same way we inherit physical traits from our ancestors.
Right, like inheriting your dad's nose or whatever.
Exactly. We just move into these mental houses and accept the load-bearing walls without ever checking the blueprints.
Better is spot on there. Were your deepest beliefs discovered by you? Or were they just handed to you?
By your parents.
Yeah, your parents, your culture, your religion, your teachers, your society. And if you're listening right now, think about this. If you had been born in another country, into another family, surrounded by another tradition.
The geographical lottery, basically.
Yes, the geographical lottery. Would you be defending an entirely different version of truth with the exact same certainty?
That question alone, that should really make us wonder.
It really should. So here is the question behind this entire conversation today. Have you ever been told the truth about reality? Or have you simply inherited a story about reality?
There is a massive difference between those two things.
The profound difference. And once you begin to see that difference, something extraordinary happens. You begin to question. Not because questioning is an act of rebellion.
Right, it's not about just being edgy.
Exactly. But because questioning may be the beginning of freedom. So I want to share something with you that may challenge some of the deepest assumptions you have carried since childhood.
but not so that you will believe us.
No, please, do not believe me. Examine it. Question it. Challenge it. Look for yourself. Because this conversation is not for those who want another authority to tell them what to think.
It takes a certain willingness to sit in the discomfort of not knowing.
It really does. It is for those willing to ask, what do I actually know? What have I merely been told? And what if reality is far more mysterious, far more beautiful, and far more extraordinary than any story we have inherited?
It's an invitation.
Right. This is not an invitation to abandon your faith. It is an invitation to examine everything, including what is being said here. Keep what survives your deepest inquiry. Let go of what does not. Because awakening does not begin when someone gives you the final answer.
It begins when you question the answers you were given.
Exactly. Awakening begins when you finally have the courage to question the answers you were given. So let's question everything.
I think the best place to start this questioning process, based on our sources, is in the most unassuming place imaginable.
Right. We're not starting with, like, quantum physics.
No, we aren't starting with quantum mechanics or ancient Greek texts. We're literally starting with basic arithmetic.
Yeah, so I want you to set this vivid mental scene. You walk into an empty classroom. The smell of floor wax and chalk dust is in the air.
We all know that smell.
Right.
Right.
And there, written on the blackboard in plain white chalk, is the simplest equation imaginable. 2 + 2 = 4.
It's so simple, it's almost invisible to us. I mean, we learned it as toddlers, and we just never think about it again.
Never.
But the text asks us to pause right here and ask a staggering question. Not who discovered it or how we use it to build bridges, but why is it true?
Right. What actually makes it true? And when you pull that thread, things get weird really fast.
Very fast.
The text points out the radical independence of this truth, that the fact that 2 + 2 = 4 doesn't depend on human belief.
No, it doesn't care if you're in an Eastern culture or a Western culture.
Exactly. It doesn't depend on a political party passing a law or a religious council issuing some decree.
It's completely indifferent to our existence. It was true before the earth cooled, and it will be true after the sun burns out. It represents a fundamental principle, like a hidden architecture to reality, that operates entirely on its own.
Okay, but I have to push back here for a second, because this is where my brain starts to hurt a little bit. The text makes this wild assertion next. It literally says, no one has ever seen the number 2.
Right.
And my immediate reaction is, well, obviously I have. I mean, I saw a giant 2 painted on the side of a bus this morning. I can write a 2 on a piece of paper right now.
But you saw ink on paper, or you saw paint on a bus.
Well, yeah.
You saw a symbol that human beings invented to represent a concept, but you didn't see the essence of 2.
But I see 2 dogs, I see 2 cars, 2 apples.
Exactly. You see the physical manifestations of the principle.
Yeah.
You see matter conforming to the law of numbers.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah, but the number 2 itself. Try to imagine it without attaching it to a physical object or a written symbol.
It's impossible.
You just can't. Because it has no mass, no color, no temperature. It has no location in physical space. It is entirely invisible, entirely non-physical. And yet its effects organize the entire visible world.
That is wild.
Think about it. If you hold 2 apples, and I hand you 2 more, you are forced to have 4 apples. The invisible principle dictates the behavior of the visible physical universe.
The invisible principle dictates the visible world. That is such a heavy concept.
It really is.
We see the effects everywhere. You know, people, planets, stars, trees, emotions playing out in time. But the text suggests that all of these visible expressions, all this physical stuff, is emerging from a deeper, unseen, fundamental reality.
And this is the core hypothesis we're exploring today. That beneath the staggering, chaotic diversity of the visible universe, there's a singular, unseen source.
Right.
And crucially, the text insists that this source does not appear as an object among other objects. It is an underlying principle.
Which brings us to a massive historical problem, because humanity has sensed this invisible principle for thousands of years.
We've felt it.
We've intuited it, yeah. And we have desperately tried to put a label on it. Our sources list the various names humanity has assigned to this unseen reality.
The list is long.
It is. Some call it God. In ancient India, it was referred to as Sanatan Dharma, the eternal order.
Right.
The Taoists call it the Tao. Western philosophers might call it the absolute, or the ground of being. The specific source document we're analyzing calls it the divine creative principle.
And what stands out when you look at that list is not the linguistic differences.
Yeah.
It's the stubborn consistency of the intuition. You have wildly different cultures separated by vast oceans, massive mountain ranges, centuries of time with literally zero contact with one another.
Zero.
Yet they all develop this deep, abiding sense that behind the countless fragmented forms of existence, there lies a deeper, unbroken unity.
But, and this is a big but, the moment we try to talk about it, the moment we name it, we fall into a massive psychological trap.
We really do.
The text calls this out, and I think it's a brilliant insight into human psychology because, think about it, our brains evolved on the savannah, right?
Right.
We are hunter-gatherers.
Sure.
Our neurochemistry is wired to deal with things. We look for objects we can hunt, objects we can eat, objects we can hide behind.
Right. We process reality through spatial objectification.
Exactly. If something exists, our brains demand that it takes up space and has physical boundaries.
So when we try to conceptualize the ultimate source of reality, this infinite, boundless principle, our hunter-gatherer brains basically short-circuit.
Totally short circuit. We desperately want to turn the infinite source into a giant thing. We imagine a cosmic person, or as the text hilariously but accurately calls it, a celestial CEO.
The celestial CEO model. It's the idea of an invisible ruler sitting somewhere up in the cosmic rafters, just managing the universe.
Right, like a guy sitting behind a massive mahogany desk in the clouds.
Pulling levers.
Yeah, pulling levers, checking spreadsheets, dictating who gets a promotion and who gets a flat tire on a Tuesday. But I want to throw a wrench into this. The text says the cosmic CEO model fails because of infinite regression.
Yes, the classic infinite regression problem.
The logic goes like this. If the universe was created by a giant cosmic being, who created that being and who created the creator of that being?
It's the old turtles all the way down problem.
Exactly. But wait, here's my challenge to the text. If the cosmic CEO model fails because of infinite regression, why doesn't the invisible principle or the unified field fail for the exact same reason?
That is a very fair question.
Right. Why does a mathematical principle or an energy field get a free pass on needing a creator while a cosmic being doesn't? Aren't we just swapping out a bearded man for a math equation and ignoring the regression?
That is a phenomenal question, and honestly, it gets to the very heart of metaphysics.
Okay, unpack it for me.
The difference lies in the philosophical distinction between a contingent thing and a necessary thing.
Okay, what does that mean?
So a contingent thing is something that depends on something else to exist.
Yeah.
An apple is contingent on an apple tree. You and I are contingent on our parents, who were contingent on theirs, all the way back to the Big Bang. Now, if you imagine the source of reality as a being, even a supreme being with thoughts, emotions, and a location, you are describing an object with boundaries.
An entity.
Exactly, an entity.
Yeah.
And in philosophy, any entity with specific boundaries and attributes requires a cause for why it has those boundaries and not others. It is contingent.
Oh, I see. So a celestial CEO, by the very definition of being an entity with a personality or a form, is contingent. It requires a cause.
Precisely. The regression remains.
Right.
But when philosophers or physicists talk about a fundamental principle or the ground of being, they aren't talking about a contingent entity within existence.
What are they talking about then?
They are talking about existence itself, the necessary condition that allows anything to be. It doesn't have boundaries, it doesn't have a location, and it isn't an object. Therefore, the question what caused it is basically a category error.
Like asking what color is the number 2.
Exactly. It exists by its own nature.
Man, okay. It's not a thing that exists. It's the isness that allows things to exist. Okay, my brain is sweating a little bit, but I track that. The source cannot merely be another object inside the universe because it has to be the foundational condition that allows the universe to exist in the first place.
Exactly.
So if we can't look for a giant object floating in space, how have the greatest minds in history hunted for this foundation?
Well, it's a hunt that has driven human intellectual history from the beginning. What is truly fundamental, the text takes us all the way back to the ancient Greeks to look at the earliest attempts to solve this.
They were obsessed with this, right?
Totally obsessed. They were looking for what they called the arch.
The first principle.
Right, the primal substance from which all other things emerge.
And their early theories are fascinating because, they seem primitive to us now, but the logic behind them is actually incredibly sound.
Very sound.
Like Thales of Miletus. He looked around the world and proposed that water was the fundamental reality.
And if you think about it from his perspective in the ancient world, It makes perfect sense.
It does.
Water is the only substance they knew that could exist as a solid, a liquid, and a gas. It falls from the sky, it bubbles up from the earth, and literally wherever it goes, life sprouts. To Thales, water was the ultimate shapeshifter, the base code of reality.
And then you had Heraclitus. He looked at the universe and said, no, everything is in a constant state of flux. You can't step in the same river twice.
Right?
So he proposed fire was the fundamental reality because fire is pure transformation. It's pure energy.
And then most famously, you get Democritus.
Yes, Democritus.
From this wild thought experiment. He imagines taking an apple and cutting it in half, and cutting that half in half over and over again until eventually you hit a piece of matter so incredibly small that it cannot be cut anymore.
He called it atomos,
Meaning uncuttable.
the atom, thousands of years before we had microscopes to actually see them.
It's brilliant.
It is. And what our source material points out, which completely blew my mind, is that modern physics is engaged in the exact same mission as Thales and Democritus.
The exact same mission.
Okay.
The vocabulary is different, but the mission hasn't changed an inch. We aren't arguing about water or fire anymore. Today, scientists are searching for a unified field.
Right. Like we've got physicists at CERN utilizing the Large Hadron Collider, this massive 17-mile-long subterranean machine.
Smashing protons together.
Yes, smashing protons together at near light speed, trying to find the Higgs boson. We have string theorists trying to prove that particles aren't even dots, but tiny vibrating loops of energy.
And why are they doing that? They are looking for a singular mathematical framework capable of explaining all the fundamental forces of nature. Gravity, electromagnetism, the strong and weak nuclear forces.
They want the one equation.
Exactly. Physicists suspect that beneath the staggering complexity of the universe, with its black holes and quasars and quantum fluctuations, there lies a deeper simplicity, a hidden coherence.
They are searching for the exact same invisible principle the Greeks were looking for.
The ultimate arch.
But the text notes a divergence here. While scientists are looking for what reality is made of in a physical sense, philosophers approach the mystery from a completely different angle.
A much more maddening angle.
Oh, definitely. They ask what I think is the most terrifying question you can possibly ask. Why does anything exist at all?
Yeah, Gottfried Wilhelm Leibniz famously formulated it as why is there something rather than nothing?
That is a question that can keep you up at 3 a.m. staring at the ceiling.
Oh, for sure.
Why shouldn't there just be a quiet, empty, infinite void? Why is there a universe? Why is there a planet Earth? Why am I sitting here thinking about it? The text says this question might actually be impossible for the human mind to solve through logic.
It really might be a limitation of our hardware. Trying to use a human brain to understand the origin of existence might be like trying to use a toaster to download a software update.
I love that analogy.
The apparatus just isn't designed for the task. But, as the text notes, the question is unavoidable. You cannot deeply contemplate your own life without eventually hitting that wall.
Right. So we have the scientists searching for the physical building blocks, and we have the philosophers wrestling with the sheer logic of existence. But our source material introduces a third group that tackles this from a completely radical direction.
The mystics.
The mystics. And mysticism often gets a bad reputation, as being anti-intellectual or woo-woo.
Right, people dismiss it.
But the text frames it as a highly empirical, almost phenomenological approach to reality. The mystic doesn't ask what reality is made of, and they don't try to deduce a logical reason for its existence.
They ask a completely different question. They ask, what is immediately present?
Yes. What remains before concepts arise?
Their entire methodology is based on the idea that human thought, language, and conceptualization basically act as a filter that divides raw, unified experience into neat little categories and labels.
It's the idea that the map is not the territory.
Yeah.
Like the word water is not wet. If you are dying of thirst in the desert, the word water will not save you.
Exactly.
The mystics are trying to taste the water before the brain has a chance to label it. And the text points out that when mystics engage in this process, when they strip away thought, drop the categories, and silence the internal monologue,
they all seem to encounter the exact same thing.
Repeatedly.
Across centuries, across completely disconnected civilizations. They encounter a reality that feels fundamentally indefensible, something that is whole, complete, and self-existing.
I really want you, the listener, to grasp how wild this cross-cultural convergence is. Our sources outline the specific historical examples. You look at the ancient Taoists in China.
Right?
When they meditated and dropped conceptual thought, they spoke of the Tao, not as a deity in the sky, but as the nameless, uncarved block from which all things arise.
Then you look at Christian mystics in medieval Europe, like Meister Eckhart or Thomas Aquinas. They didn't describe God as a superpowered being sitting on a throne. Aquinas described God as ipsum esse subsistens.
The sheer act of to be itself, being itself.
You move over to India, and the Hindu sages of Advaita Vedanta spoke of Brahman.
They use this amazing analogy, right?
Yeah, the famous analogy of a man walking in the dark who sees a snake and is terrified. But when the light comes on, he realizes the snake was just a piece of rope. The multiplicity of the world, the snake, is an illusion caused by ignorance, while the underlying reality, the rope, is Brahman.
You see the Roman philosopher Plotinus writing about the one. You see the 17th century rationalist Spinoza writing about substance.
And these people couldn't hop on a Zoom call to align their philosophical frameworks.
No.
They lived in entirely different eras, spoke different languages, and had totally different societal conditioning. Yet, they all developed the exact same intuition. Reality is indivisible, it is whole, and it is self-existing.
It heavily implies that this insight isn't just an Eastern idea or a Western idea or an artifact of a specific religion.
No, it is a fundamental human discovery. It is something woven into the very fabric of human consciousness, just waiting to be noticed when consciousness turns its attention inward toward its own source.
Okay, intellectually, we have this beautiful poetic idea of the one. But practically speaking, how the hell does a single, invisible source turn into a chaotic world with traffic jams and podcasts and pine trees?
Right, how does unity become multiplicity?
Exactly. The text offers a couple of brilliant analogies to help us ground this, starting with gravity.
Gravity is the perfect bridge between the invisible principle and the visible world.
Because you never see it.
Never. It is an entirely invisible force. You can't capture it in a bottle.
Wow.
What do you see? You see the expressions of the principle.
You see an apple falling from a branch. You see the moon locked in a tidal embrace with the earth. You see massive spiraling galaxies forming in the deep vacuum of space.
The visible manifestations, the things you can actually measure, photograph, and touch, are incredibly diverse. But the principle generating all of those wildly different manifestations is exactly one.
The principle is one, the expressions are many.
That is it.
That is so clean. But the source then gives us the analogy of a game of chess, which I think does an even better job of explaining how the many can become so endlessly complex.
The chess analogy is fantastic because it deals with combinatorial explosion.
Unpack that.
Think about the game of chess. The rules are incredibly simple, strict, and unchanging. A knight always moves in an L shape. A bishop always moves diagonally. The board is always 64 squares.
But because of those few simple and visible rules, the number of possible unique games is staggering.
It's beyond staggering.
I think mathematicians call it the Shannon number, right? There are more possible games of chess than there are atoms in the observable universe.
Exactly. Millions upon millions of games have been played in human history, and it is highly likely that no two games have ever been perfectly identical.
Never. You have different players, different strategies, different emotional states, blunders, sacrifices, brilliant endgames. The visible, chaotic complexity of a chess match is practically infinite.
Yet every single one of those unique games emerges entirely from the exact same unchanging underlying order.
The many emerge from the one. Now, if we scale that analogy up from a chessboard to the entire cosmos, the text argues that we see the exact same dynamic playing out.
We look out into the universe and we see billions of galaxies, trillions of stars, countless forms of biological life, a virtually infinite diversity of shapes, colors, and events.
It looks like pure, chaotic multiplicity.
But everywhere we point our telescopes and everywhere we point our electron microscopes, we see the exact same laws operating.
Right.
The laws of thermodynamics apply just as strictly to a quasar 10 billion light years away as they do to the cup of coffee sitting on your desk.
The mathematics that govern the golden ratio in a spiral galaxy are the exact same mathematics that govern the spiral of a nautilus shell in the ocean.
The physical principles are uniform across the entirety of space and time. It is the same underlying order. It is unity expressing itself as diversity.
Okay, understanding this logically is one thing. I can nod my head at the physics and the math. I get the chess analogy. But what happens when you take this from an intellectual concept and apply it directly to your own personal existence.
Right.
What happens when you realize that you are part of this unity?
This is what we call the cognitive rupture.
Yes, and this is where I want to bring Joe Bandra back in, because Bandra talks a lot about these exact moments of cognitive rupture.
He really does.
It's that exact moment when the philosophical structure you inherited suddenly collapses and you realize you are not who you thought you were. Our sources bring in Baruch Spinoza right at this point, and his realization was so radical it terrified the people around him.
Spinoza proposed something in the 17th century that actually got him excommunicated and exiled from his community. It was profoundly disruptive to the inherited stories of his time.
What did he propose?
He proposed a philosophy of radical monism. He argued that reality is a single, infinite substance, and that this one substance is expressing itself through infinite forms. He called it the usive natura, God or nature.
Which means, and if you are listening to this right now, I really want you to let this sink in. It means human beings are not separate from reality. You are an expression of reality.
You do not exist outside of nature, looking in at it. You are entirely within it. You are not an independent, isolated entity operating outside of the whole.
You are actively participating in it.
The calcium in your bones, the iron in your blood, the electrical energy powering the synapses in your brain, it is all the exact same substance as the rest of the cosmos.
Okay, I have to stop and wrestle with this because that is not how it feels to be alive.
No, it's not.
This insight completely flips our normal human experience on its head. In my day-to-day life, I feel like a completely isolated, separate entity. I feel like I am a ghost driving a meat skeleton.
Right, it goes in the machine.
Yeah, I feel like I am in here, behind my eyes, looking out at a universe that is out there. We even use language that reinforces this. We say things like, I came into this world.
But Spinoza and the mystics we discussed earlier would argue that your feeling of separation is a fundamental misunderstanding of your own nature. You didn't come into this world. You came out of it.
Like a leaf comes out of a branch.
Exactly, or a wave comes out of the ocean.
You are an extrusion of the cosmos. The text has this incredibly powerful phrasing to describe this shift in perspective, and it urges the reader to internalize it. It says, the universe is not something happening around you. You are one of the ways the universe happens.
You are one of the ways the universe happens. That actually gives me a sense of existential vertigo.
The text continues, you are not standing outside reality examining it. Reality is examining itself through you.
Think about the mechanics of what that actually means. The eyes you're using right now to look at the stars are quite literally made of stardust.
The brain you are using to comprehend the physics of the universe is the universe comprehending its own physics. We are not visitors.
No, we are the cosmos waking up, opening its eyes, and looking in the mirror.
The implications of this are staggering, both philosophically and psychologically. If the source of everything and the expressions of that source are truly inseparable, then our deep-seated feeling of separation, that anxiety of being an isolated ego against a hostile world, might be an evolutionary illusion.
An illusion. But I'm going to challenge the utility of this realization.
Okay, do it.
The text is careful to note this, and I want to highlight it. The divisions in the physical world remain practically useful.
All right.
I might be one with the universe, but I still have to pay my taxes.
Unfortunately, yes.
Trees remain trees, people remain people. If a bus is coming down the street at 40 miles an hour, you still need to step out of the way.
You can't just stand in the crosswalk and yell, the bus and I are one infinite substance.
Exactly. You will be immediately run over by the infinite substance.
Right, so the functional multiplicity of the world doesn't just vanish. The physical rules of the chessboard still apply. But beneath that functional diversity, beneath the apparent separation, lies a deeper continuity, a shared being.
So if separation is a practical illusion, useful for navigating Tuesday afternoons, but ultimately untrue, the question becomes, has anyone ever actually experienced this?
Yeah.
Not just philosophized about it, but actually felt the boundaries melt away in real time.
And the text brings all this lofty philosophy down to earth by sharing a very specific, deeply personal anecdote. It grounds the theory in direct human experience, referring to an event that happened to the author on April 15th, 2020.
I love how specifically and clinically they describe what happened. They didn't have a psychedelic trip. The world didn't disappear into a void of white light. There were no hallucinatory fireworks.
Right. They say the physical reality of the room they were in remained exactly as it was. But what disappeared was the feeling of standing apart from it.
The psychological boundary dissolved. The distinction between the observer, the I inside the head, and the observed, the world outside, simply softened and collapsed.
The text notes that the diverse objects of the world, the furniture, the trees outside the window, remained entirely visible. But the underlying unity behind them became an undeniable, lived reality rather than just a cool intellectual concept.
I equate it to staring at one of those magic eye posters from the 90s.
Oh, yeah.
When you first look at it, you just see a chaotic mess of colored dots. The multiplicity is all there is. But if you relax your eyes, suddenly your focus shifts, and the single unifying 3D image pops out from behind the chaos.
The dots didn't go away, but your relationship to them fundamentally changed.
That's a great analogy. But the text is very careful here, and it is a vital point for critical thinking. The author acknowledges that a subjective shift in perception, like the one on April 15th, does not mathematically prove anything.
Right, it doesn't prove string theory. It doesn't prove Spinoza was completely right. It doesn't validate any specific religion.
Subjective experience is just that, subjective. It is a data point of one.
So if it doesn't prove anything, what is the point of the experience? Why include it in the source material?
Because its value isn't in providing an irrefutable answer. Its value is in raising a profound question. It serves to challenge the baseline assumption we all walk around with every day.
Which is?
We all assume, without ever questioning it, that we are separate things living in a universe of other separate things. But an experience like that asks us, what if that fundamental assumption, the one we built our entire worldview on, is entirely an illusion?
What if the universe is not fundamentally composed of separate things at all?
What if it is, as Thales, Spinoza, the physicists at CERN, and the mystics all suggest, an expression of a single underlying principle?
It really seems like human beings have spent our entire recorded history circling this one ultimate mystery, just using different tools.
We really have. Science continues searching for it through mathematics, particle colliders, and orbital telescopes, trying to mathematically prove the unified field.
Philosophy continues reasoning about it, trying to logically deduce why there is something instead of nothing.
Psychology continues exploring the implications of our subjective experience of separation and unity, like Joe Bandra's work.
And mysticism continues pointing toward it, urging us to drop our conceptual labels and just look deeply at what is immediately present.
Different approaches, different languages, different methodologies, but they are all hunting the exact same mystery.
We have spent this entire deep dive journeying from the inherited stories we are handed at birth, to the chalkboard with 2 + 2 = 4, to the ancient Greeks looking at water and fire, to a chessboard with infinite possible games, and finally to Spinoza telling us that we are the universe looking at itself in the mirror.
And that entire journey leads us directly to the final, lingering question proposed by our source text. It's the frontier of human understanding. If there truly is one fundamental principle underlying all of reality, how exactly does it pull it off?
How does it express itself as the solid, messy, beautiful, tragic world we experience every day?
How does unity appear as multiplicity? How does the infinite, which by definition has no boundaries, no shape, no beginning, and no end, somehow appear as the finite?
How does the unseen, the fundamental source, become seen in the form of a falling apple or a spiral galaxy or a person listening to this conversation right now?
The relationship between the invisible, infinite order and the visible, finite creation itself is arguably the most fascinating puzzle in existence. It is where science, spirituality, and our own daily lived experience finally meet.
It really is. So I want to leave you, the listener, with a thought to mull over on your own tonight. A thought that builds on everything we have unpacked today. Go back to that house you inherited in your mind. The one where you just changed the wallpaper because it's easier than checking the foundation.
What if you finally took a flashlight down into the basement of your own beliefs, of your own reality?
And you realized that the foundation wasn't made of stone or concrete or dead matter.
What if you realized the foundation was made of the exact same material as you?
What if the house, the foundation, and the person living inside it were all just different, fleeting expressions of the exact same miraculous, invisible principle?
Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who might benefit from the conversation. Your support helps us continue exploring the deepest questions of life, consciousness, and reality. I am Julia Carter, and it is my honor to introduce Joe Bandra, author, philosopher, speaker, healthcare technology pioneer, and lifelong explorer of life's questions. Through his writing, Joe bridges science, philosophy, psychology, spirituality, and direct experience in a search for truth. His first book, Finding Nivea, is a transformative journey of self-discovery and the search for lasting happiness. His second book, Body, Mind, and Machine, chronicles his remarkable career and the evolution of healthcare technology. His next book, The Nature of Reality, explores consciousness, existence, and the mysteries at the heart of human experience. Joe's work invites us to look beyond what we think we know and awaken to a deeper understanding of ourselves and the universe we inhabit.
Life often feels like an endless list of tasks, constant noise and distractions, pulling us in every direction. We're all searching for happiness, but what if we've been looking in the wrong places all along?
This was Nivea's journey. Lost in the noise, she felt cut off from the peace and happiness she longed for, until she met Joe Bandra, an unconventional, insightful philosopher with a different perspective. Jay, as he is simply known, didn't hand her a map. He gave her something far more valuable, a compass, a way to turn inward, navigate her own thoughts, and uncover the clarity hidden beneath the chaos.
Readers around the world have been touched and inspired by Finding Nivea.
Your journey to inner peace begins now. Get your copy of Finding Nivea, available on Amazon and at findingnivea.org, or listen to the audiobook on Audible, Spotify, Apple, and other platforms.